I am Whitney Cole, and at 29, I reflect on a childhood spent in a house where affection was a language I never learned to speak properly. My younger sister, Delaney, was the celestial body around which my parents' lives orbited, leaving me as the shadow sharing their surname. This dynamic was entrenched from our earliest days, yet I remained wholly unprepared for the lengths my parents would go to once I became pregnant. I still vividly recall the exact moment of discovery. 2 distinct pink lines appearing on a test I handled with trembling fingers in a gas station restroom, unable to wait until I reached home. I was married to Jasper Cohen, a steady, compassionate electrician who returned home each evening smelling of fresh sawdust and roasted coffee. He always planted a soft kiss on my forehead before even removing his work boots. When I shared the news, he broke down into deep, soul-stirring sobs. We had spent nearly 2 years trying for a baby, and I had almost surrendered to the belief that my body would never fulfill this dream. That night, we lay together lovingly dreaming of nurseries and futures. For the first time, life felt truly kind. I made the error of thinking my parents would celebrate this wonderful news with us. I traveled to their home that Sunday carrying a small gift bag containing a grandma's favorite onesie. It was intended as a light-hearted joke to ease the announcement. Delaney was there, lounging on the sofa and scrolling through her phone, indifferent to motherhood and always the focus of every room. My mother was occupied in the kitchen, while my father watched golf from his recliner. It was an exceptionally ordinary afternoon, devoid of any warning signs. I stated clearly that I was pregnant, due in April. The resulting silence was heavy, not with shock or joy, but with the calculation of people who had just received the wrong answer to a problem they had already solved. My mother's features hardened into a mask of disapproval. My father muted the television, a gesture that felt more aggressive than a shout. My mother asked if Delaney was aware of this, as if I required my sister's permission to start a family. I laughed, thinking it a bizarre joke, but the room remained cold. Delaney finally set her phone aside, her eyes sharpening with a freezing entitlement. She stated flatly that she was supposed to be first. It was an entitled demand, as if I had cut in line at a grocery store. I attempted to clarify that this was not a competition and that Delaney wasn't even in a relationship, but my mother stood abruptly, her chair screeching against the floor. Suddenly, she crossed the room and struck me, her open palm slamming into my abdomen hard enough to steal my breath. She screamed that the first grandchild must be Delaney's and ordered me to get rid of it. I hit the wall, shielding my belly as my heart hammered in my ears. My father didn't intervene. He simply watched with a tight jaw, seemingly in agreement with the violence. My body took over, and I fled the house, fumbling with my purse and the door through a blur of tears. I drove home in a traumatic daze, the sound of that blow replaying like a nightmare. Jasper found me on the bathroom floor an hour later, still wearing my coat and shaking uncontrollably. Between gasping breaths, I told him everything. I watched his expression transform from confusion into a cold, focused rage. He didn't scream, but he held me on the cold tile and promised that no one would ever touch me or our child like that again. For 3 days, the silence from my parents was absolute. No apologies or concerns followed, only the implication that I had committed an unforgivable act by existing and carrying life. Then, on a Thursday evening during a quiet dinner, the doorbell rang. Jasper opened it and went completely still, calling me over in a whisper. Standing there was Eleanor Voss, my grandmother, whom I hadn't seen in 15 years due to a long-standing family estrangement involving money and pride. She stood with a cane and a folder, her sharp eyes immediately noting my swollen face. She explained that she had heard everything because Delaney had called her, sobbing and horrified by my mother's actions. This revelation was stunning. Delaney, who had acted so entitled, had actually been disgusted by the violence. It turned out our mother had spent years conditioning Delaney to believe the first grandchild was her birthright, and seeing the physical assault had finally shattered that mental programming. Eleanor sat me down and opened her folder, revealing a trust she had built for her first great-grandchild, regardless of which granddaughter gave birth. She had anticipated my mother's favoritism would turn ugly and wanted to ensure the child was protected. She asked if I would be willing to go with her for confrontation. 2 days later we stood on their porch, steady Jasper's arm firm around me and Delaney waiting inside. When my mother saw Eleanor, she turned white and trembled, gripping the doorframe for support. Eleanor remained calm, laying out her disappointment and the details of the trust. She questioned how protecting Delaney's feelings could ever justify striking a pregnant woman. My father remained silent in his chair, just as he had during the assault. My mother's justifications died in her throat. I didn't yell. I simply told her that her twisted competitions were over, and my child would never be raised in an environment where love was rationed by birth order. Jasper and I left, and newly found peace finally returned to my heart. Months later, I delivered a healthy girl named Adeline. Delaney was among the first to hold her, crying as she apologized for the words our parents had forced into her mouth. My mother makes small attempts at contact, but I keep my distance. Eleanor, however, visits every week, and Adeline knows her voice perfectly. If this story moved you and you believe children deserve love over violence, please subscribe to our community. Whitney's journey deserves to be heard, and there are many more stories waiting to be default.